Hey everyone, how's it going? It's Russell here, and Chrystia Freeland, the Deputy Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance for Canada, just went on a podcast where she revealed what her current thinking was around the CRB, as well as a range of other benefits that are all set to expire here in the next week, and whether or not they're thinking of extending them and what their current thinking is around this entire issue. And along the same lines, the Governor of the Bank of Canada, Tiff Macklem, recently held a press conference where he revealed what his thinking was around the current labor shortages and whether or not he believes the narrative that the CRB is the reason we're seeing labor shortages is actually true. So in today's video, we're going to go over both of these statements and break it down and let you know exactly what that means for you and what the chances are of this benefit being extended here into the future. But before we do, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and use any of the links in the description that help support the channel, and you can start taking your wealth into your own hands. But first off, let's get into exactly what Tiff Macklem said here in this recent press conferences, and trust me, this does relate to what Chrystia Freeland is going to say on the podcast, which we're going to cover right after. As of right now, one of the biggest complaints about the CRB is that many businesses are having a hard time hiring workers, and a lot of people are buying into the narrative that as a result of the CRB and people being able to claim these benefits, less people are going into work. Now, Tiff Macklem here has a slightly different opinion. Let me show you what I'm talking about.
Hello, Governor. Thanks for taking my question. You mentioned in your remarks earlier today about, you noted that there was a labor shortage in some parts of the economy. Simultaneously, we have a slow recovery among low-wage workers in particular. And I'm wondering if you think this bifurcation is exacerbated by COVID supports, and is there a policy solution, either monetary or fiscal, that could resolve this kind of bifurcation?
How affected it is by COVID supports is pretty difficult to answer. I have to say, I think when we talk to people, what you hear is that there are a lot of reasons. People may be nervous about taking public transportation. People may be nervous that their employer doesn't have an environment that is as safe as they want it to be. Families are dealing with their children are back at school. Children gets a cold. All of a sudden, all their children need to stay home. Somebody's got to be home with them. There are. I think what we see in this pandemic is there are a lot of consequences that are affecting people's lives in real ways, and that is affecting their ability to get back to work.
So that's an interesting take from Tiff Macklem, especially given the decision that Chrystia Freeland has to make alongside Justin Trudeau on whether or not they're going to extend these pandemic benefits. Essentially, what Tiff is saying here is that the CRB may not be the only reason for the labor shortage that we're seeing in many low-wage jobs, and that it may also be a result of poor working environments given safety concerns around the pandemic, as well as numerous other things like the way that children who are going to school may need to come back home irregularly if they get the sniffles, right? So there's lots of different points here that Tiff Macklem's bringing in, and it could be potentially something that Trudeau and Chrystia Freeland are listening to as they're about to make this decision. And we're about to listen to a podcast interview that Chrystia Freeland gave just one day ago. It was actually yesterday. But before we do, I need to give you a little bit of context around this, because the main thing that they're using to decide whether or not they're likely going to extend some of these benefits is jobs numbers and economic data, right? They're going to look at the recovery and the route that it's going, as well as like how many closures there are and how many restrictions there are in different provinces, and based off of that, make their decision. That's going to be pretty important for you to keep in mind when she answers this question, but let's listen in.
One last question for you. A lot of the emergency relief programs are supposed to end next week. That includes the wage and rent subsidies and the Canada Recovery Benefit. Do you see any of them continuing past this October 23rd deadline with the fourth wave still on us?
That is a very good and timely question, Chris. And you're right, the fourth wave is still here. You're right that some restrictions are still in place. But it's also the case that the economy is recovering strongly. I was very happy about last week's job numbers, and it is the case that we are reopening. So this is a different phase from the phase we were in when those programs were put in place, and we're working now on what's appropriate for the conditions today.
I think you're telling me I have to wait.
I'm afraid so, but we're working on it very hard. I have a stack of papers in front of me about precisely this issue.
So, of course, that's a very interesting response from Chrystia Freeland, because she brings up, yes, we are in this fourth wave, different provinces are having different struggles at different times, but she brought up the fact that, hey, she was very impressed with the jobs numbers and the current economic growth that we're seeing, and she emphasizes that we're really in a different phase now from the time when the CRB was initially implemented way back in September of last year. So she says that they're now working on what's appropriate for the current phase. And likely the way it sounds, and this has been said in the language, is that the Liberals are very in favor of more targeted support for individual sectors and likely more strict criteria on who could qualify for any future benefits if this is something they're considering. Now, of course, if you've been watching the channel, you'll know that they do have the option to, without any kind of need to go to the House of Commons, they are able to extend this benefit all the way until the end of November instead of having it end at the end of October. Now, right now, it looks a little bit unlikely that they do that based on this language that they're saying, hey, we need to support individual sectors and we're working on the best way to do this. But I am expecting that we are going to get some sort of announcement within the next week or so from the Liberal government. I'm thinking probably this week, if not in the first few days of this week, as we lead up to that sort of deadline where the programs will all be shut down. So to me, right now, this sounds like the Liberals are potentially considering either making changes to the CRB program or creating a new program entirely that's more targeted on certain individuals. But the interesting thing to note here is that in order to make changes like this or to create a brand new program, they'd have to take this through the House of Commons and through Senate. And this is especially interesting when you consider that just yesterday, or in the past 2 days, Justin Trudeau set the day that they're set to go back into the House of Commons, back into Parliament, to late in November 22nd, I believe, is the date. So they actually won't be able to even debate some new policies or new programs or changes to the program until this time. So if they don't extend this until the end of November, well, there won't be an opportunity for them to make the changes they want to make or create the new programs they want to create. But like I said, I'm expecting that we will get some sort of update here in the next week, and as soon as we do, I'm going to make a video about it for you so that you can know exactly what's going on. So if you haven't already done so, subscribe, and if you're a subscriber, hit the notification bell, because that will actually send a notification to your phone so that you can know as soon as I post a video, so you can have the most up-to-date information. And while you're down there, make sure to leave me a comment and let me know what you think, and if you have any questions, I try to respond to as many as I can. And of course, if you haven't already done so, check out the links in the description. When you use those links to sign up for various investing products, well, then you're supporting the channel while you do so. So I'd appreciate you if you do that. But with all that said, thanks so much for watching, everybody. I really hope this video has helped you out at least a little bit, and I'll see you next time.